I never expected to hear my ex-wife defend me. Not after the way we ended. Not after the silence. Not after the divorce papers. Not after 2 years of pretending we had become strangers. But life has a strange way of placing people back in front of you when your heart is finally tired of carrying old pain. The night it happened, rain was falling so hard that the city looked blurred behind my windshield. I had just finished a late shift at the warehouse and stopped at a small grocery store to grab coffee before driving home. It was almost closing time. The place was quiet except for the soft hum of refrigerators and an old song playing somewhere near the checkout counter. I was standing in the frozen food aisle staring blankly at a box of microwave dinners when I heard her laugh. My entire body froze. Some sounds never leave you no matter how much time passes. I slowly turned my head. There she was, Emily, my ex-wife. She looked different but also painfully familiar. Her hair was shorter now. She wore a long brown coat and held a shopping basket against her chest. And beside her stood a tall man wearing glasses and a dark jacket. Her boyfriend. I looked away immediately, my heart already pounding harder than it should have. For a second I considered leaving the cart and walking out of the store entirely. I didn't want awkward eye contact. I didn't want fake smiles. I definitely didn't want to see her happy with someone else. But before I could move, I heard the man say something that stopped me cold. So your ex really just gave up on the marriage? I don't think he meant to sound cruel, but those words hit me like a punch to the ribs. I stayed completely still behind the aisle. Then I heard Emily answer. No, she said quietly. He didn't give up. There was a pause. I could hear my own breathing. The man spoke again. Well, that's not what your sister said. Emily let out a tired sigh. My sister only saw the ending. She didn't see what he carried for years. I felt my throat tighten. The boyfriend laughed softly. You still defend him because people blamed him for things they never understood. I closed my eyes. For 2 years I had lived with the belief that Emily hated me. The divorce had been ugly. Not screaming ugly. Worse, cold ugly. The kind where two people slowly stop reaching for each other until silence becomes normal. By the end we barely talked unless it was about bills or paperwork. Her family thought I failed her. My friends thought she stopped loving me. The truth was more painful than either version. We were two exhausted people drowning quietly beside each other and neither of us knew how to ask for help. I listened carefully as her boyfriend spoke again. Then why did you leave him? Emily didn't answer immediately. When she finally did, her voice sounded smaller. Because loving someone who's falling apart can break you too. I gripped the freezer door harder. Falling apart. That was exactly what had happened to me. A few years earlier my father got sick unexpectedly. Hospital visits became weekly, then daily. Medical bills piled up faster than I could handle. I picked up extra shifts. I stopped sleeping properly. I stopped talking properly too. Emily tried to help me at first. God, she tried. She would wait up late just to eat dinner with me. She'd rub my shoulders when I came home tense and angry. She'd ask me to open up, but grief, people, and stress changes the way you love. Eventually, every conversation became an argument. Every bad day became another brick in the wall between us. I started shutting down emotionally because I thought I was protecting her from my pain. What I didn't realize was that silence can hurt someone just as deeply as harsh words. After my father died, I became someone even I barely recognized. I stopped laughing, stopped going out, stopped noticing the way Emily cried quietly in the bathroom because she thought I couldn't hear her. Then one night she sat across from me at the kitchen table and asked the question I had secretly feared for months. Do you still want this marriage? And instead of answering honestly, I stayed silent. That silence destroyed us. 3 months later, we signed the divorce papers. Back in the grocery store, I heard her boyfriend speak again. You still love him, don't you? My chest tightened instantly. I knew I shouldn't keep listening, but I couldn't move. Emily gave a soft laugh, the kind people use when they're trying not to cry. Love doesn't disappear just because papers get signed. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Then she added quietly, but sometimes love alone isn't enough to save two people. I finally looked around the corner. She wasn't crying, but I knew her face well enough to recognize sadness when it sat behind her eyes. For a moment, I saw the woman I used to dance with in our tiny kitchen while pasta boiled over on the stove. The woman who used to leave little notes in my lunchbox. The woman who once told me, "Even when you're quiet, I still hear your heart." And suddenly, standing in aisle 7 beside frozen vegetables, I realized something terrible. I had spent 2 years blaming her for leaving without ever admitting how impossible I had become to reach. Her boyfriend noticed me first. His eyes widened slightly. Emily turned around immediately. The second our eyes met, the entire world felt painfully small. Neither of us spoke. I expected awkwardness, maybe guilt, maybe resentment. Instead, her expression softened with shock. "Daniel." Hearing her say my name again nearly broke me. I forced a small nod. "Hey." The boyfriend looked uncomfortable instantly. "I'll go grab the drinks," he muttered before walking away. Then it was just us. Two people who once promised each other forever, standing beneath flickering grocery store lights, pretending their hearts weren't shaking. Emily looked nervous. "You heard that conversation, didn't you?" I could have lied. Instead, I nodded again. Her cheeks turned red with embarrassment. "I wasn't trying to." "Thank you," I interrupted softly. She stopped talking. "For defending me." Her eyes lowered immediately. "I never thought badly of you, Daniel." I swallowed hard. "I thought you hated me." She looked up so fast it hurt to watch. "Hated you?" she whispered. I was heartbroken. Something inside me cracked open. Not loudly, quietly, like ice finally melting after a long winter. We stood there in silence for a few seconds before she smiled sadly. "You look tired." I laughed softly. "You used to say that every time I pretended I was fine. You were never good at pretending." I looked at her carefully. "You seem happier." She hesitated before answering. "I'm trying to be." That answer stayed with me. Trying. Not fully happy. Not completely healed. Just trying. Maybe that's all adulthood really is. Two people trying to survive the things life does to them. Her boyfriend returned carrying 2 bottles of soda. He looked polite but cautious. Emily introduced us awkwardly. "Daniel, this is Marcus." We shook hands. To my surprise, Marcus smiled warmly. "Emily talks about you with a lot of respect," he said. I almost laughed from disbelief. Respect? After everything? I nodded awkwardly. She always deserved kindness. Emily looked away quickly after I said that. Marcus glanced between us and suddenly understood something neither of us had said aloud. Some love stories do not end because love disappears. They end because pain grows louder than communication. After a few more uncomfortable minutes, they headed toward the checkout line. I watched them leave, and for the first time since the divorce, I didn't feel anger, only grief. The mature kind, the honest kind, the kind that admits we loved each other deeply and we still lost each other anyway. I thought that would be the last time I saw her. It wasn't. 3 weeks later, I got a phone call around midnight. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me not to. When I answered, I heard Emily crying. "Daniel." My stomach dropped instantly. "Emily? What happened?" "It's my mom," she whispered through tears. She collapsed. Within 15 minutes, I was driving toward the hospital. Some habits never leave you. No matter how much time passes, the people you once loved still matter when things fall apart. I found Emily sitting alone in the waiting room wearing gray sweatpants and an oversized sweater. The second she saw me, she stood up and hugged me tightly. Without thinking, I hugged her back, and suddenly all the years between us disappeared. Not romantically, not magically, just humanly. Two wounded people remembering they once survived life side by side. Her mother ended up being stable after several stressful hours. Exhausted, Emily and I sat together near the vending machines drinking terrible hospital coffee. "I didn't know who else to call," she admitted quietly. "You never have to apologize for calling me." She stared down at her cup. "Marcus and I broke up." I looked at her carefully but didn't ask questions. She smiled faintly. "He said part of my heart still lived in the past." I didn't know what to say to that, so I stayed quiet. But this time it wasn't the destructive silence from years ago. This silence listened. Emily eventually leaned back in her chair and looked at me. You know